You know, I was thinking about the Russian propaganda, that they are spending millions, years, decades on their propaganda. Don't you think that Ukraine are not spending enough money, resources to counter-propaganda?
It's impossible. What Russia is putting out, Russia only exports terrorism and lies. That's what I've always said. And they are the world's best at propaganda. And it's not millions, it's billions that they're putting in.
Billions, yes.
And countering it is basically impossible. And Ukraine doesn't have to put out propaganda because Ukraine isn't lying. Ukraine isn't hiding anything. People just have to come here and see the truth. And a lot of people do. That's why so many Americans still support this country. But combating it isn't done by Ukraine putting out anti-propaganda. Combating it is by British and American governments making it illegal for Russians to spread misinformation into our televisions. That is the way this is stopped. It's easily done. We had the Tenet media scandal 2 years ago where $11 million was given to the CEO of an organization for lots of right-wingers to spread Russian talking points. That was discovered by the government and it was shut down. We can shut down these networks, but it's just about taking the Russian threat seriously enough and dedicating resources to stopping it. I would put all the resources of MI5 into this if I was the head of the UK government. One of the former heads of Reform, which is a major political party in the UK, has just been involved in a trial for taking money from the Kremlin and spreading it. And this is a major political party. This is today. I don't know if you saw this.
No.
So Reform UK is one of the biggest political parties now. It's taken over the Conservatives in popularity. Nigel Farage has obviously had interesting connections with Russia, as all will say.
Yeah.
But one of the key politicians has been found taking Kremlin cash. That should be illegal. That should be something that is arrestable. You should go to prison for it. And if we start taking the Russian threat seriously enough in Britain, then this ends immediately. But we've got politicians, media personalities. The Lebedevs bought the London Evening Standard. We allow Russia to buy our newspapers, to buy our politicians. We give them knighthoods in the House of Lords, and we allow them to pollute our politics and allow them to pollute our media as if it's just a regular country. And until that stops, the propaganda is going to keep spreading. But it can be stopped overnight. The government just needs to wake up and realize that it's a hostile nation that's still at war with us. Russians have poisoned people on British soil in Salisbury. They have flown drones into NATO literally a month ago. They flew a fighter jet over Estonia literally 2 weeks ago. They're at war with NATO, yet we allow them to buy our newspapers and buy our televisions. This is unhinged behavior, and until that's stopped, then we're still going to see this repeat and repeat and repeat. Because we allow them to. If you give Russia an inch, they'll take a mile, and we allow them to pollute our politics.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to follow up, I have read a very interesting article about how weak Europe is now and how they cannot resist Russian aggression. And just a quote from here: Europe, the continent that gave the world democracy, the Renaissance, the great explorers, the liberation ideas of the Scottish Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, and the emancipation of slavery, is now the world's laughing stock.
Absolutely. It is, because we've allowed ourselves to become weak to what the threat against us all is. We are the ones that opened the Nord Stream pipeline after Russia took Crimea. We're the ones that decided short-term cash was better than preserving our democracy and preserving our freedom. And it's so humiliating being from the rest of Europe, being even born into any of these countries that took part in this, because we allowed it to happen. We funded partially this war. The money that gets given to soldiers, a lot of that money comes from gas that's bought from Germany, from Hungary, from EU member states.
Yes.
And it's so sad and it's so weak. And I don't think these countries are going to realize the Russian threat until it's too late, until there are drones flying into Germany, until the sites that you and people in Ukraine have to see every single night, like at 5 o'clock this morning with missiles flying over your cities. I don't think people will seem to realize it until it's too late, until it really hits them. When survival kicks in, they're just sitting back and watching. But that's why Ukraine has basically taken things into their own hands. That's why they're now hitting Russia, because they're looking west and they're saying, what is going on here? You guys can't even decide if we're at war with Russia or not. You can't even decide which politician you're going to sell to Russia. We're going to start hitting Russia ourselves and taking it into our own hands, developing our own weapons, our own missiles, because they're not a proper ally. And I made a video about this when I was in London, talking about the Blitz. And, you know, when Jinping and the leader of North Korea and Putin all gathered for that military parade in China, this is World War II, where you have an axis and you have no allies. This is as if you had Lutsenko, Mussolini and Hitler all gathered together for a military parade, and France and Britain still deciding if it's even a threat. This would be the same situation now. And appeasement can only be forgiven once. And we tried that in World War II. We tried appeasement. Neville Chamberlain tried it with Hitler. It didn't work. Hitler just took more. They carved up Poland the next day. That's what's happening now. And history won't appease appeasement. History won't forgive appeasement twice.
No way. I think they just put their own comfort, Europeans, over any kind of risks.
Short term. It's short-term cash. It's short-term cash from the Kremlin. And in the 90s, when the first gas pipeline was being talked about being built from Russia to Germany, the American government actually came in and said, this is a disaster. You shouldn't be doing this. A, we want to sell you the gas instead from Alaska. But B, if you do this, you will be at the receiving end of an energy war with Russia, and Russia will start having sway and pull over your countries. This will be bad for your democracy. This will be bad for your freedom. And it was the Americans that tried to stop it happening. But they decided on the short-term money. They decided to build it instead. And the Russians offered 2 years of free gas for building that. They said, we'll give you 2 years free. And then all the politicians made money from it. Some of the lobbyists that helped push it are now in Russia, the German lobbyists. So we chose quick cash, short-term, over our own security. And now the consequences are coming in, because in 2014, when Estonia protested about what happened in Crimea, the Estonian oil prices doubled as a punishment. This was predicted for so long. We saw it coming, and now this is the result of it. And that's why I'm glad that they're blowing up these gas pipelines, because this is what's paying for all this.
Absolutely.
And if we won't shut off the taps, then Ukraine's going to shut off the taps.